wake up, welcome to Shy Society. I wake up in the morning and the first thing that I see is a bunch of cranky people on a full bus with no seats, repeatedly undermining what's in common misery. Strangers remain blinded to existence and their history. What's the recipe? Well, taxes and a slave wage, harassment from the debt they face. Family happenings may take place, wait, negate the hate. Defend you'll never ever hurt brothers and sisters. Not a damn thing from them you have learned. The pages turn, the future replicates the past. A building burns, fire revenge is pretty fast. War dance, it's a ritual in society. Live in shy land, this is what I describe to be childish, helpless, ignorant society. You will always be a part of me. Childish, helpless, ignorant society. Will always be a part of me. Childish, helpless, ignorant society.
All right, everyone, mic check. Welcome back to the Existentialists. I am your man, Tony B. Thank you for viewing the Existentialist. We are on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. Comment, like, share on Facebook. It's important that we engage in these conversations. And today's video will cover a Biden presidency, the road to Venezuela. Ooh. So, let's give some context to why I am titling this The Road to Venezuela. It is now January 19th. Tomorrow is Inauguration Day. We will have President-elect Joseph Biden sworn in to be our next president. So that is the context. Yes, we are finally saying so long to President Trump, the great Führer, right? The great leader, the one that I will call proudly the neo-fascist leader. No fan of his whatsoever. And in fact, I'm no fan of our next president, Joe Biden. But there's this big scare on the right wing and the right-wing propaganda that the Democrats and Joseph Biden are going to turn the United States into a dystopia, a socialist dystopia. We will live under a socialist rule. The U.S. Constitution will be torn into pieces, and Biden will destroy everything that America stands for. Yes, this is their greatest fear. And that's why we're on the road to Venezuela. So, if you're watching, be mindful that I am being satirical. I don't believe this. I'm no fan of Joseph Biden. But we're going to pay close attention to what Joe Biden has to come starting tomorrow all the way through the end of his presidency. And we will remain critical, as we should on the left. It would be ridiculous to begin praising a man as our idol, as our hero, as our liberal savior. So, what is the road to Venezuela right now? What is that looking like? And here at the Existentialists, we're going to be covering the first 100 days. Try as close as possible. There's a lot out there about Joseph Biden, his administration, both good and bad. So here we're going to try to do you the service of doing our best to cover the most crucial points. So let's start with the $1.9 trillion stimulus package that's coming out soon. That's supposed to be on Biden's agenda. So this stimulus agenda, and this is being reported by Forbes. So it looks like the plan for Biden is to obtain a $1.9 trillion stimulus plan. I want to take at some three critical points. We're going to look at the stimulus checks. Remember the 2,000 stimulus checks. I remember Biden stated, if Georgia voters decide that Warnock and Ossoff, the two Democrats that won just last week in January. It took out the Republican senators, and now we're going to have 2 Democrats sworn into office. The $2,000 will be given, a guaranteed to be sent to American families, American individuals. This was a good thing, right? And so Georgia voters decided. It was a close race. I was wrong, admittedly. I didn't think the Democrats were going to pull it off in Georgia. And it was such a close call. But they won. The Democrats won in Georgia. And now we're supposed to get $2,000. So we're going to look at stimulus checks. We're going to look at an extended unemployment benefit and a minimum wage increase. Yes, apparently, within this package, there is an offer of a minimum wage increase, an extension to unemployment benefits, and a $2,000 stimulus check. Let's take a look at this. The administration is looking for $1,400 checks, so 1,400 checks. President-elect Joseph R. Biden is trying to make good on Democrats' promise to send more money to households in the form of one-time checks. His proposal would send out $1,400 per person for those under certain income thresholds, topping off the $600 checks that came as part of the December relief package. Yes, so remember, in December, the Democrats and Republicans finally got together under President Trump's leadership, a failed Nancy Pelosi leadership, a failed Mitch McConnell leadership. They finally decided, let's give Americans $600. If you remember, you got $1,200 back all the way in March. For some, April. For some, never. That was a one-time $1,200 check, and then they gave $600 checks. So in total, Americans so far, those who are eligible, they received $1,800. Well then. Now, some people are saying President-elect Biden and the Democrats promised $2,000. What the hell's up with this $1,400? I think that's a mince of words. I think they knew what they were doing. They wanted a total of $2,000 to get to Americans. It would have been nice that they just threw another $2,000 instead of $600. Oh, let it be $2,600 for crying out loud. Remember, people still have to pay bills all the time. Phone bills, electric bills, gas bills, car insurance. These things don't just go away with a one-time payment of $2,000. So $1,400. I think it should be taken with a grain of salt. Yes, they said total of $2,000. They didn't want to give you an additional $2,000 on top of the $600. Right? Okay, but here's where I become critical. Well, everyone fears this is the first step to Venezuela. The socialism is taking over. I argue no. We're not talking about a socialist takeover. We're not talking about creating Venezuela in the United States. What we should be saying and repeating over and over again is social democracies work. Social democracies are not socialism. Social democracies aren't even solely capitalism. What they are, they're a hybrid. They're an admittance that a private market is beneficial and should exist. But on top of that, there's a strong social safety net decided by the democratic populace. That means the people of a government, a sovereign people, have decided that these are the functions that the government should serve the people. Remember, public servants. That's what the government establishment is. It's to protect the welfare of its people. And if people want a strong social safety net, then damn it, if that's what the democratic consensus is, let them eat. Let them eat bread, cake. I forgot the saying. So, I say social democracy. This is a victory if this happens. Now, the problem with this happening is because Biden wants to pass this $1.9 trillion bill through a vote, which of course is good. It's going to be passed through a vote. I'm going to counter what the vote should go through. What kind of vote? The vote that he wants to get a majority of the Senate. So that would mean 60 senators. There's 50 Democratic senators, or people that will vote with the Democrats. 2 independents, 48 Democrats, that's 50. They need 10 Republicans. Now, there are Republicans like Marco Rubio who will likely side with Democrats. Okay, now we need 9. Who else are we going to look to for those 9 Republican votes? And a matter of fact, there's one Democrat by the name of Joe Manchin of West Virginia. He's one of the last conservative Democrats. He believes he represents the working class in his state. I would counter and say no. He represents special interest. He represents a conservative ideology that the Democrats have long moved past. So we have a problem. Biden wants to get a consensus through the Senate. We can get this bill passed through the House. That would be no large task. It would be the Senate, 60 votes. But there's another path. There is another path to get this bill. Now, what they should do, they should just pass a clean $2,000 stimulus check bill. It would just be you vote yes or no on just the $2,000. And then everything else can be separate. But no, they want to do this path. So it seems like the moment that this doesn't go through because you can't get enough Republican support, you can't get enough Democratic support, like Joe Manchin can say, no, we can't do this. Now the Democrats once again have an excuse why they can't get things done. And why in 2 years they will lose seats in the House. Maybe very well in the Senate. The Democrats will prove to be losers once again. But this is why I argue for a social democracy. And there's another way to get this $1.9 trillion. It's a budget reconciliation. Pass it through reconciliation. So that grants the Congress the power to review a budget and make amendments. And they can vote on how to allocate money. Remember, the Congress has the power of the purse. This isn't socialism, Venezuela type work where the Constitution is destroyed. This is a power that the Congress has. And in that budget reconciliation vote, they wouldn't need 60 votes. All they would need is 50 votes. That's 50 Democratic votes. 50 versus 50, 100 in the Senate. And then Kamala Harris as the vice president, she becomes the tiebreaker. So isn't that wonderful? They should do that path. But Joe Biden wants it to be a bipartisan effort, which is good for our republic. I will admit that. But why put a hurdle in the way of something that's much needed? And then you're just going to tie your hands and say, well, there was nothing else we could do. They always do that. Even Senator Dick Durbin's done it before. All these politicians say they don't want to play dirty. They don't want to play by the rules that are already established. So it's a problem. I say vote by budget reconciliation. Just get the 50 votes you need and have Kamala Harris break the tie. That's me. I'm not the president of the United States. I'm not an elected official. But hey, what could be better than all of this? Well, for me, it seems pretty simple. See, progressives, and I brought this up before on this channel, if you haven't seen it before, Representative Ro Khanna of California, he has offered back in March, before everyone got $1,200 checks, he wanted to give Americans $2,000 a month throughout this entire pandemic. That would have been $500 a week to every eligible Americans. And he was bold enough to go down to the age of 16, American workers at the age of 16 and up. Well, because no one paid attention to that, but progressives are bad at it. They want a $2,000 stimulus check monthly. Remember what I said earlier. People still have things to pay. You don't just get one stimulus check and all your problems go away. No. During a pandemic, the government should do the most to try to ensure that the strongest factor in an economy, the American people, is held up to a very healthy standard. That's my belief. And it's quite notable to see who was part of this. So this was Ed Markey, Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts. He's actually a Democrat that Nancy Pelosi no longer likes. They tried to primary Markey. Oh, but when you primary other neoliberal centrist Democrats, they cry foul, and that's a problem. You shouldn't primary Democratic leaders. We should be united together, stronger together. But Markey is an exception. Too progressive. We can primary his type. Well, Markey is not alone. Apparently, even Bernie Sanders jumped on board with Markey. Yay, Bernie Sanders. And Vice President, when she was a senator, Kamala Harris, backed this very idea. And so their bill, which was introduced in May, mind you, and now Markey is bringing it back up now that we have the Senate and the House. Well, we could get the Senate with that tie-breaking vote from Kamala Harris because it's 50-50. This would provide a $2,000 a month to Americans that earn less than $120,000 for the duration of the pandemic and for 3 months after the crisis ends. So these people are thinking on their toes. Markey, he got it. Now this might yell socialism in Venezuela, and everyone would be like, the debt, the debt, the debt. But let's be real. When Wall Street's in trouble, who do they run to for a bailout? The government. When everyone wants tax breaks, the wealthy get most of the benefits when it comes to tax breaks. When the wealthiest industries like oil, gas, Amazon, they have corporate welfare. They get subsidized. But when the average American worker and the middle class, the poor, the people who are struggling on a day-to-day basis, those essential frontline workers, whether they were in the hospitals or in your grocery stores, hours were cut, Americans struggled, families are on unemployment. These bold ideas are needed in a social democratic way. And this is a smart idea. $120,000, that's the cap for families making that much. Come on. This is bold. But do we have where else do other countries do this? Well, I'll show you. Australia does it. Oh, just Australia though. No, actually. Canada. What do you want from me? Canada, really? Our neighbor to the north is beating us. Denmark. Of course, the Scandinavian countries. Well, Denmark isn't socialist. Yes, it's a social democracy. And that's what we want here. France. I always hear these jokes growing up that France, they're weak because they surrendered to the Nazis when they were invaded. They surrendered. Oh, but look at them being so bold and standing up for their people now in a pandemic, in a crisis. Germany, I was just talking about how France surrendered to the Nazis. The Nazis is a stain on German history, but the Germans have come around. One of the strongest economies in the world. Germany's able to do it. But no, not the United States. One of the powerful and most richest nations ever. Ireland? Hey, I like Ireland. I like saying the word Ireland. United Kingdom. Oh, the British are coming. The British are coming. These countries, while they're not identical to giving all of their citizens $2,000 a month, many of them offer a certain like $500 a week, like Canada. Like, it's amazing about some of these opportunities that these countries had offered. Now, they don't match, like I said, they don't match the American dollar precisely. But how could we see these other countries, modern nations of the world, they believe in democracy, they have capitalist systems, they have safety nets. See, Australia, for instance, they subsidize the wages of 6 million people in order to keep them in their jobs. That plan would pay employees at any company they saw a 30% reduction in revenue. So around 1,500 Australian dollars, which was equivalent to 928 US dollars every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, Australians, almost 6 million of them, they were given wages equating to almost $1,000. That's almost 500 every week. 450, just 470 to be fair. 460. There's more. Canada, right? Good friend Canada. $500 per week, up to 26 weeks for workers who stopped working. So now there's much argument to be had about, oh, well, the United States had unemployment benefits. But for a lot of these workers and a lot of these people in these countries, while it varies, they were guaranteed an income to depend on. But the United States, no, we're not bold enough to take that direction. We're not bold enough to find that leadership. Because they're like Venezuela. That's why you ever hear Turning Point USA, a conservative outlet, any conservative arguments about Venezuela. You use these examples of countries that are not Venezuela, that believe in capitalism, that engage in free trade around the world, our allies, our Western allies, and really think why America is stuck in the Stone Age. It's truly fascinating, I have to say so myself. Now, let's just admit, the Democrats they're not there. For me, they're cowards when it comes to following the will of the American people. I don't like it. But that's what we get. We continue to vote in this type of mindset, these neoliberals, the ones that want to give breadcrumbs and ignore a structural problem in America. A structural systems, structures that are set up to not really make sure that Americans are not just fall into a system of dependency, but they fall into a system where they could pick themselves up and progress in their own lives. But there needs to be a strong social safety net. America lacks in that kind of system. That's why social democracy is key. But let's get to the other points. What else does this stimulus package have to offer? Okay. Wants an unemployment insurance supplement of $400 a week. This is better than the $300 a week that the Republicans and President Trump, along with the Democrats, negotiated on in this last one that passed in December. The $900 billion stimulus package, right? That offered $300 for 11 weeks. This one offers $400, and it expires in September, the end of September. So that goes past fall. This is bold. See, this is the kind of action that actually represents the good America can do. Wow. See, I'm confused why the Democrats, back in March with the CARES Act, they said $600, and they negotiated very early. So people started losing their benefits starting in July. The $600 ended in July. How is it that President Biden is so bold to push the Democrats to go through all the way to the fall? So this shows that the Democrats were weak sauce early on in the negotiations. They had a lot of leverage. They didn't have to give all this trillions of dollars to the corporations. But they did anyway, and they allowed unemployment benefits of $600 extension to expire. Now, while they did allow for pandemic unemployment benefits to be expanded to help the states carry their unemployment numbers, that expired in December, they folded and they gave away all their leverage. That's one point. The second point that I have to address, I thought Democrats were adamant that $300 wasn't enough and $600 would suffice. Now I'm confused. Now that you have the Senate, now that you still have the House, you lost some seats, and now you have the executive branch. $400? Hey, that's a good number. You know, I don't think there's much to be upset about based on state by state costs of living. $400 might not be enough. I'm not the expert on this. But hey, $400 is a good deal. But I'm so confused because when it came to the Democrats pushing for $600, they would only push for $600 against the Trump administration and the Republicans. But now that Biden's proposing less than what the Democrats initially wanted, there's no pushback. There's just an agreement, a bow to King Biden. Once again, this just shows the loser mentality of the Democrats. They didn't give a damn. Nancy Pelosi, when she folded on the $1.8 trillion right before the election, similar to the $1.9 trillion, she's showing her true colors. So it's quite upsetting to see once Biden says 400, everyone praises him. Everyone on the neoliberal left, right? The centrists. I hate using that word for them because they're really Republican light. They're really just moderate Republicans with a little touch of leftism in their spirit, which is not a bad thing to have, that leftist touch. But it's just so strange that $400 is an agreed upon number, but when the Democrats were fighting for the American people and saying $300 is not enough, we were shy $100 from it being enough. Wow, you can't make this stuff up. But let's pat him on the back. Thank you, oh Lord Biden. Now here we go. This one I applaud. I'm a little concerned as to why this needs to be tied in with the stimulus plan. Just a little concerned. It's $15 minimum wage. The federal minimum wage is $7.25. Now I've had people argue, based on state by state, let them decide. Some states don't want to help their workers. They don't care. So I do like that finally it's recognized by the Democratic Party that this needs to happen. Could have happened in President Obama's administration. He had a majority. A clean vote on raising the minimum wage. Dr. Cornell always resonates in my mind when I think about President Obama. He's just a Republican in blackface. And it really says a lot that Biden has to pick up where Obama left off and keep Obama's promises in Biden's administration. It's almost an insult to Democratic voters that we continue to play these games. And I'm happy that this $15 minimum wage increase is in the bill. But why couldn't it be separate? I'm concerned because once again, if this stimulus package does not get Republican support, if it doesn't go the way President Biden wants to get a bipartisan effort to pass this, instead of going the route that I suggested, right? I suggest going through the budget reconciliation process. Get 50 votes from the Democratic Party and make Kamala Harris break the tie. So since Biden wants to go bipartisanship, he needs 60 votes from the Senate. $15, if it doesn't go through, we lose the $15 minimum wage increase. We lose the unemployment benefits. We lose the $1,400 stimulus checks. So it's quite worrisome to really consider why lump all of this up. I hope because President Biden, as a moderate Republican in my eyes, he has sway with the Republicans and he could do something about it. But let's see where we are. And there's plenty more to cover. But here it even says in this article, under the proposal, which would also end the tipped minimum wage and sub-minimum wage for people with disabilities, that's a good thing. Many state and localities have already, okay, it's not clear how quickly the higher wage would phase in. So that kind of stuff needs to be clear. I live in the town of Cicero, Illinois. And in Cook County, which comprises of a bunch of suburbs and Chicago, Cook County, right? In this county, there was a agreed upon to pass a minimum wage, one that would increase every year. And at this point, past July, it was raised to $13 an hour. Cicero, my lovely neighborhood, and other suburbs in Cook County, only a few, the majority said yay. The governments, the municipalities said yes. But some, like Cicero, they opted out. Cicero is largely working class Americans, working class immigrants. We weren't good enough for a $13 minimum wage. So we got stuck. We got stuck at whatever the state had to offer us. I mean, it's better than $7.25 in the state of Illinois. But we don't know what this is going to look like. Is this 15, it'll be kind of cruel to really say $15 tomorrow. But a person who stands for the working class and to benefit their lives, the radical in me says this should be retroactive. That's a little too bold, maybe. Someone could convince me otherwise. But what this looks like during a pandemic worries me. So a $15 increase for working class Americans would be a great thing. By when does this happen? Because we're in a pandemic. Shouldn't this be immediate? Shouldn't people be compensated? It's very interesting to consider the urgency of such an act and no real clear detail on how fast this could happen for Americans. So those are some of the things we have here. And I want people to know there's a lot more to be done. You name it. Remember, President Biden wanted to relieve us of student debt relief. We'll create another segment on that. But while we say bye to the great Fuhrer, and we say hello to the socialist dictator, President-elect Biden, we have to make sure that the Democrats understand what is being made an effort to help them in their woes and what is being sidestepped so they don't have to do everything it takes to improve the lives of every hardworking day Americans. These are the crucial questions as we go forward. What can he do with his executive power? What can he do with a budget reconciliation process that doesn't require Republicans trying to end any effort to move forward in this country? What will we do to Democrats that are more conservative, like Joe Manchin of West Virginia? Will President Biden dare primary those that stand in the way of a progressive agenda? And will Bernie Sanders, as he sits on a Senate chair for a budget committee, what power will he wield? And how will he pressure Biden to make the right decisions? One thing that's missing, this $1.9 trillion new stimulus deal, if passed, it helps open up schools safely. These little kids are dirty and they touch everything, put everything in their mouths. It's scary, but families are worried. There's a split about reopening the schools. Biden wants to open them up. There's money for states. There's money for COVID vaccines to be distributed. One thing I'm concerned about that's missing in this budget is what's going to be done with those Americans that have no health care. Biden has the sweeping power to implement a Medicare for all system under this emergency. Temporary. This could be done. But what about those? Well, the previous bill, the 900 billion, offers rental and mortgage assistance, so people who own property or they rent so they're not evicted. Well, President Biden is going to, by executive order, extend an eviction moratorium, pretty much ending any possibility for evictions, and extending student loan payments so that the rates don't go up and continue to be active. That way people can still stall on paying their student loans. Well, he's going to do executive orders. We bailed out Wall Street before. Is that possible that whatever was in that $900 billion for rental assistance and the mortgage assistance, that's not going to be enough for all the Americans who might face eviction? Is the moratorium enough? Because those people are going to have to face the piper one day or another. Maybe a minimum wage increase will help. Maybe a $1,400 compared to their $1,000 every month they've been having to pay without a job. All these numbers are mixy. Maybe there's no real clear answer. But what's to happen with these people? Is this another down payment? We need bold leadership in these times. The Democrats have an opportunity to play FDR politics. FDR got elected 4 times in our country's history. 4 times. He was the most progressive of anyone. In terms of an economic progression. What will the country do? Will we fall to the wayside and continue to lead in the way that helped create a monster like the Trump movement? Or will we be bold and make sure that the predecessor, the next leader after Biden that wants to take the mantle of Democrats, they do what's bold and they're prepared to continue on that legacy? Or do we keep losing elections and allow Republicans to control their narrative? The socialist boogeyman is coming for you and your children. They want to bring Venezuela to us. Or do we use logic and reason and discuss the social democracies around the world that do what it takes to move humanity forward? These are the deep questions we must ponder upon. President-elect Biden might be one of the most progressive presidents in modern time. He also might drop the ball. I'm betting on he drops the ball. Well, I think we should pay careful attention and decide for ourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Existentialists. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, like, share, comment on Facebook. Remember, we wish to engage in conversation. I look forward to seeing you again. I'm Tony B. Peace.
Wake up, wake up, wake up. Welcome to Shy Society. I wake up in the morning and the first thing that I see is a bunch of cranky people on a full bus with no seats, repeatedly undermining what's in common misery.